Well, here we are, another stop on the journey to finding hope, inspiration, and positivity in this crazy world we all live in. You are listening to Changing the Perspective podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and like this video below. If you are listening on a podcast service, please like our podcast on your preferred service. No matter how you choose to hear this interview, we are grateful you are following us on this journey. Hey everyone, welcome back to another interview of Changing the Perspective. Today, I have another one of those wonderful people I've met on my podcast community. I seem to have this overabundance of people all of a sudden that I've connected with, which is absolutely amazing that we can all connect on a level. We all offer something very different, yet the same. So today, I'm excited to bring you Elliott Vang. We are actually going to be discussing men's mental health and kind of how he helps men manage that and find the better them in their daily lives. This is one subject I feel like doesn't get touched on as much as it should. Men tend to kind of go inside themselves and not talk about their mental health quite as frequently as women do. So I'm really excited to have you on the interview today. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate all of that. So just tell us kind of how you got started and what's your story?
Yeah, hi Shauna. Thank you for having me on your show and featuring me on your podcast. I'm excited to be here, and it's an honor for me to be here. First and foremost, I want to say who I am. Right, I am a husband to my wife and a father to my two kids, and that always didn't come up first, right? And maybe towards the middle of the conversation or the end of the conversation, sometimes it didn't even come up at all. And I was like, why? Like, like why wasn't that coming up? So
Yeah.
I just love starting with that because that's like priority for me, right? That's my values, and that's what's super important for me.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you get to talking about men's health? Where did that all start?
So I would say it started with me, right?
Okay, good.
And I'm still work in progress, right? I don't have everything figured out, but it started with me, and I would keep my emotions bottled up inside. I would not express it, and when I would, that's when it blew up, right? That's when it's like it just got way too much, and I just like blew up. And the person on the receiving end, like, whoa, 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 like, where's this coming from? Like, it's like, I don't know, right? So I was on the brink of losing my relationship with my wife, losing relationship with my kids. I kept playing it safe, right? And didn't step outside of my comfort zones, didn't step outside of the little box that I was in because I just felt comfortable and safe there. But the result of that is here's my wife doing wonderful things, doing her own thing. And here I am still saying, oh, I'm still trying to figure myself out. I'm still trying to figure things out. I'm still need to figure this out. And I just got to the point where our relationship was on the brink of divorce. Um, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what is this? I knew there was something more for me. I knew that, I was like working jobs. I was jumping from job to job and didn't feel on purpose. I felt like I was like sleepwalking my way through life. And luckily for me, that's when my path crossed with high performance coaching. And such a game changer for me. I am more present in my relationships now. I am more engaged in my relationships now. I'm just enjoying life way more than I was before. So, going back here, I would say me, like it was me, like I had to do that work on myself first. And now I'm like, oh, I want to turn around and also be able to help other people who are dealing with this, struggling with this, having this kind of challenge.
I love it. So my ex-husband is a blow and go type of guy. He would just freak out all of a sudden, and then it was over, but I was still standing there going, uh, what happened?
Yeah.
um, so that, I mean, ultimately, that relationship didn't stick around, and potentially because I just didn't understand what would set him up or why really. And usually it was something small, although it was a lot of small things, that just piled on. But he was never good at talking about his emotions. So you talking about kind of that all of a sudden you would, kind of let it all go.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation and it's very weird on this side for sure.
Yes.
You're like, hold up.
Yeah.
All I did was paint it red, not blue. Like, whoa. So, yeah. Um, okay, so let's talk about, as you kind of talked about you were on the brink of divorce. So,
Mhm.
how did you go about figuring out the things that you needed to kind of own up to or admit to make your relationship healthy?
Yeah. When I went through coaching and when I was going through that process, I was having these like aha moments. Like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, that's what I've been doing all this time. I can't believe that I was been doing that. I can't believe that I've been holding my emotions back. And a lot of that goes to my upbringing.
Okay.
I my dad passed away when I was 8, tragic car accident. I didn't have that male role model figure around for me to learn from, right? How to be a man, how to be a husband, how to be a dad. It wasn't until I had my own kids and I was like, what is this dad thing? Like, I don't know how to do this because I never had anybody to model that after. So it's kind of like a trial and error. And I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was doing fine. But, when I look back at it now, I'm like, oh, wow, I was being like that. Like, I would say, a jerk, right? I was being like a jerk,
Yeah.
to my wife, to my kids, because I wasn't present. I wasn't there. I might have been there, but I wasn't present in that relationship.
Yeah. I think that's a tough one in society these days is we're so tied in and like there's a million things happening all at the same time and we're constantly, searching a million things on our phone all at the same time that we tend to forget to be in whatever moment we're in
Mhm.
because we've now thought, "Oh, I need to remind so and so of this and I need to do and it's just this constant jumble in our brains. So what is kind of one piece of advice you try to give people on being able to stay present in whatever situation they're in?
So when I work with people, and so I'll give my example, right? I'll be working away on my computer. My son will come in, talk to me. Here I am typing away on my computer, nodding at him, and say, "Hey, Dad, like, hey, I have to leave in an hour for practice." Here I am nodding. He comes an hour later. I'm still in the same spot, haven't moved. It's like, "Dad, we got to go." I was like, go where? Where are we going?
Mhm.
And he's like, "We had a conversation an hour ago that I have practice." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" He'd be like, "Why didn't you tell me?" Right? He kind of like freaking out on my end. Um, and then when the roles are reversed, he's playing his video games. I would be, "Hey, I got to run to the store. There's the dishes there. Can you just do them before I get back?" Right? Like hours, he'll come back from the store. He hasn't moved. Dishes haven't been touched. And I'm like, I can't get mad at him.
Yeah,
I've been role modeling that for him.
yeah,
Right? And I can't be like, why are you being like that? Because kids, they soak everything that we do and we say, right? The
yeah,
good and the bad.
yeah,
And I'm just like, oh, I have to be that role model. I have to set that example for him because who is he going to learn from? Right? And even to this day, he's 12, and he still talks about, boys and men, they don't cry. Um, like, why do they're so sensitive? And then we'll just have a conversation around it. Right? Just be curious, like, hey, what do you mean by that? Well, where did you hear that? Um, are you hearing it at school? Is it like YouTube videos? What is it that you makes you think that men and boys don't cry? Because I'm like, we all have emotions. We all cry. We all have happy emotions as well, right? So why do we only share when it's happy, but when we're sad or down, like, why do we keep that bottled in?
right. I love it. The parenting thing is, I mean, that's just a tough world all around. But
Yes.
as I'm growing up, I'm realizing how much my upbringing kind of made me decide certain things, make certain choices along the way, act a certain way. And on the other side, you can also look at your parents and go, I am never going to be like that.
Yeah.
Or I'm never going to punish like that. Or, like there's always something we criticize our parents for. Now, to all, if there's any teenagers, I know my 19-year-old son's friends listen to these sometimes.
Okay.
Oh, it's just the most random thing. But for all of you teenagers, I promise at some age you will decide you like your parents again.
Yes.
They are
Yes.
not as dumb as they seem.
And that's the thing, right? When they're young, like my son is 12 and my daughter's 10. So
Yeah.
they still want to hang around mom and dad, right?
Yeah.
But pretty soon as they get to the point where all they want from mom and dad is money. And
Yes.
hey, can I get some money? And then they're out the door with their friends or whatever.
Yeah. And a
But
ride up until they turn 16.
yeah. And then they'll be on their own and
Yep.
do their own thing. But then they'll eventually come back and be like, oh my gosh, I miss my relationship with my mom. I miss my relationship with my dad. I just want to hang out with my mom and dad. Right.
Yeah.
So, I just want to keep enjoying this moment because I know it's going to happen soon where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, they're out the door and they don't even say hi to you anymore. So,
It's really funny. My son comes from divorced parenthood. His dad and I divorced when he was super young. And so he's always known this every other week
mm,
mentality until he was able to drive. And then it was kind of like wherever he landed, he landed. But even on the week I had him, I really only had him half the time because he spent most of his time with anyone else but me. And his dad said the same thing. Like, he's never here. Does he come to your house? Nope.
yeah.
It's a kid thing. But on the kid front, that's something we can talk about because as you talk about men's health, particularly, it seems typically that it's the women that are setting the kids down and having these emotional talks or, oh, you broke up with your so and so. I'm so sorry, whatever. How do you encourage your men who are coaching with you that are parents to get involved in those kind of emotional moments so that their kids know there's this example there?
Yeah. You know what I love to do is put them on the spot, right?
Yeah.
They'll say, they'll have, I don't know how to have this conversation with my son. Like, for example, I'm like, okay, I'm your son. What would you say to me? They're like right now? Yeah. I was like, yeah. Like put them on the spot, right?
Yeah.
And say, hey, let's not just have this conversation. There's nobody else listening in on it. You can say whatever you want. You can like say things and mess up, right? But it's okay because you are being an example for your son. Saying, I don't have everything figured out. I don't know everything and nor do I want to know everything, right? So just having that like role playing right there on the spot, and they're like, and most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, it's like, oh, that was it. I was like, hey, what do you think,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, oh, that was easy to have. I was like, okay, right? So most of the time, they're like, yeah, that's a conversation I totally can have because then now they get to decide what they want to talk about, how they want to approach it, instead of just jumping in like the deep end of the pool. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. Right? It's like, no, hey, let's just test it out. Let's try it out, and let's role play this out right now, here and now, and we'll generate options together.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I love it. So I was the mom that some of the other kids came to
mhm,
because I raised my son very much with you are going to have lots of awkward and weird questions throughout growing up. You should know that I'm going to feel the awkwardness when you come ask me, and you may get a super awkward answer back, but it's always going to be the honest of the honest answer. And we're not going to use words that aren't correct. We're using all the right words. I'm not going to, like the whole birds and the bees talk. I'm not going to call certain things different things to make you feel better.
yeah,
It just needs to happen. And so what I found is because I was so just kind of open and honest and we Googled all kinds of things because as a single mom with a boy, I was like, I don't know what some of that is.
yeah,
Um, I would call my dad, I would call my
yeah,
brother-in-law, like, so what's whatever.
yeah,
It was terrible. But, for me, that meant my son knew I'm going to give him a direct answer, even if it was super
mhm,
awkward for him to ask. And I told him, look, if you ask me an awkward question, it's probably awkward for me to answer it too. And so we're just
yeah,
going to like fumble through it together and it's going to be weird. And then we're both going to be fine when it's over. But there's those moments. And I became that parent that some of his friends even came to, like, "Hey, this happened and I just don't know how to handle it," because their parents weren't talking to them, and it
yeah,
it stinks, and I never gave them, like, parental advice, it was just very general, but,
mhm,
um, I encourage all the parents out there listening to even if it's an awkward conversation, just have the awkwardness, like, it'll help them later. I
Of
promise.
course it's gonna be awkward, right?
Oh,
Yes, of course, right? It's
yeah.
going to be awkward. But would
Yes.
you rather have it with them or have them go and find out on their own
Right.
or find out from someone else,
And
right?
half the time, they're not gonna find out the right info.
Yeah. I mean, and that was great that your son's friends had somebody like you to go to and say, "Oh my gosh, I don't understand this, and I'm gonna go ask Shauna, right? Or and go ask so and so's mom, right?" It's like, yeah, that's great that they have somebody like that in their life because
Absolutely.
I encourage. I work with young people to say, "Hey, find one or two trusted adults that you can go and ask questions. You can, and they're not gonna judge you, right? They're just gonna say, hey, I know, like, this is what I think. Or if I don't know it, then they can help you find the resources to go and find out that answer or solution."
Yeah. I think it's wonderful. His friends never directly asked me. They always like came with Ethan to ask me.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Or
oh, this
like, hey, can you ask your mom this question?
yeah. And he never asked for them. He always brought them along and he would ask the question why
Oh,
they were standing there. And then after they would leave, he would go, we've already talked about that. Like this wasn't for me. I'm aware,
mm,
like we've talked about
mm.
this. So it was really random, as well as for those parents out there that are this turned into a parenting conversation. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry.
know.
Uh it when you're hearing your kids and their friends talk and they are blatantly not accurate, correct the inaccuracy. Because in school, they tell each other all this stuff that really
Yes.
isn't the right thing.
Hmm.
So there's multiple times I'd walk by his room and I'm like, no, that's not what you think that is. Like, the answer is no. So, so bad. Okay.
And bathroom conversations. Right? They can go to the bathroom and hear so many different
Yeah.
conversations. Oh my gosh, like I heard this today in the bathroom, and it's so true. I was like, no, 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 no.
No,
Hold on,
it's not.
slow down, slow down. Like, come back. Let's have a conversation around that piece. Yeah.
It's not. So back to topic, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like this is a subject that's hard for men and women both, but the failure, admitting failure,
Hmm.
apologizing for your failure. But I feel like men tend to have a little bit harder aspect because in their mind, they were made to be this strong, never
Yeah.
fail, never be let down type of person. So how do you manage that in telling your people like it's okay to fail and it's okay to say you're sorry and admit your failure?
Yeah. And what I love is like professional athletes right now
Mhm.
are coming out with that message more and more about mental health and mental
Yeah.
illness. And they're saying, hey, like I'm going through it. It's a real thing. Right. So
Yeah.
people are seeing it, younger people are seeing it. And it's like, oh my gosh, so and so's talking about mental health, so and so's talking about mental health,
Yeah.
and it's okay, right? It's something that we all go through. And I love it how that they're just having this campaign about, hey, let's get it out there out open and start talking about that. Yes, you brought up a good point. Men are, when we talk about our emotions and be talk like that, it's we are that stigma of, oh, you're weak, right?
Mhm.
It's like, I'm going through this emotion. I don't, am I not supposed to share it, right? So talking about being weak, talking about, hey, you just man up. Like, those are common themes that I hear. And it's like, no, I can't show that vulnerability. I just can't. Um, and I just love to have, hey, real conversations with men, and let's just sit down and let's talk. Because I tell them straight, I'm not judging you. I'm not a place from judge, and I'm not going to tell you what to do. Right? You are here to generate your own options. I'm just here to help guide you in this conversation, and you're going to come up with your own solutions, your own um, ways to go about having that conversation.
Yeah. I like it. I know that having to be self-aware to admit failure is the hardest probably aspect of human development at all. We feel like if we admit our wrongdoings that we are to be guilted or shamed
Hmm.
for those wrongdoings. And that happens in men and women all around. And so it's like we're raised to not admit that we're not perfect. Yet
Yes.
none of us are perfect
Hmm.
in any form. Do you ever direct your men clients to seek counseling or a therapist outside of just the professional coaching that they're getting with you?
Yeah, if it comes to that point where I feel they are struggling with something that happened in the past, right? Then that a conversation will come up. And, and I want to say, hey, you need to go do this, right? I'll just, hey, bring it up. Because I went through counseling myself. And I know when I went through, I was shameful of telling people that I was going through counseling, that I was seeing a counselor or therapist. Um, but it helped me so much to deal with my internal stuff, right? That internal stuff that goes on for men. And like you said, just admitting failure. Sometimes not even admitting failure. We as men, we struggle to ask for help,
Yeah.
right? Just that's because then again, we get perceived as being weak or incapable, or we just don't know how to do it. And here we are, we're men. We want to be able to figure it out, but time is not on our side, right? So when I don't know something or I don't understand something, I'm just gonna go ask. Hey, I'm gonna go say, hey, do you know this or can you help me with this? And if they don't, then say, hey, can you direct me to somebody who does? Because we're wasting time.
Yeah. Have you, in your client base, ever come across someone who was like a past abuser? They've admitted to whether it's mental, emotional, physical abuse of their spouse, been able to turn it around, and you actually believe that they turned it around.
Hmm.
Deep.
I don't. Go ahead. What was the question? What was your?
I
What
said
were you
that
gonna
was a
say?
deep question.
Yeah. Yeah. um. I have not worked with anybody who is on like the physical abuse
Yeah.
side. Verbal abuse, some, but more so. Trying to think. I would have to say no to
Okay.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to find from the abuse community, which is where my heart lies based off of personal experience. I believe that those people don't tend to seek out help of really any form because in their mind they've got everything handled. And if they get in front of someone that can see that crack in the foundation, obviously that's not a good thing for them. So I tend to find out that they don't seek much help. I just wondered if you happen to come across it.
I have not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some verbal abuse, but not like blatantly verbal abuse. Kind of like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain
Yeah.
that, but yeah. So I
Yeah.
would say no.
Okay. So, how do people find you for the coaching and, what exactly are you offering?
So people can find out more info about me at my website, ElliottVang.com. That's Elliott with 2 L's and 2 T's, Vang.com. And, I just enjoy having conversations with people. People who I didn't know much about the coaching industry before I got into it. And I was like, no, people who need a coach is someone who is going through some kind of crisis mode or need like super help. And now that I went through, I was like, no. Like there's this extra piece to it. I needed to get to this another level and I needed somebody to help me see that, right? Have that self-awareness of I was in my own head. I was holding myself back. I was the one who was doing all this damage to myself. I couldn't blame anybody else, right? So just taking that ownership of, yes, I put myself in this situation and I'm going to crawl myself out of it. So I highly encourage people, if you are stuck, if you're stuck, you want to get to some other level, you need some kind of help, right? Seek out a coach, right? And so many different coaches have free sessions that you can go find about because you want both parties to be able to make a fit. Right? It's got to work for both parties, right? The client for the coach and the coach for the client, because you're going to be working with this person for the next however X number of weeks or sessions, right? So,
Right. Yeah. We will make sure we put that link in the description of this interview so anyone can easily access it, find you very quickly, so that they can connect to you in whatever way they need to or choose to. I assume you have all your information on your website for them to
yes,
find that. Okay.
yes.
Any piece of advice you would give to men that are kind of in a struggle or thinking about maybe, trying to get to that next level within themselves?
To be very intentional and positively intentional with their time, right? Be it, hey, I want to um, work on my relationship with my spouse. Okay, be intentional of that. Like, what does that look like? Right? Who do you want to be when you are around your wife, your spouse? And then again, if you have kids, who do you want to be when you are around your kids? Right? And be, especially this past year, this pandemic, we've all been home and we've all been under the same roof, but have we really been in present with our kids or our spouse? Right? We might be in different parts of the house and everybody's in their own room and we're all home together, but are you really present in that relationship with your spouse or your kids?
Yeah, I feel like this pandemic probably heightened maybe some holes in relationships, made
Hmm.
them more obvious. Now, whether you saw the obvious, but I'm guessing in a majority of us, we at least saw one thing like, wow, I didn't realize that was so broken. I need to work on that in some form. It definitely brought everybody closer when they maybe didn't want to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last words or
No, I just want to say to the men out there, if you are going through some stress, anxiety, depression, something along those lines, some kind of mental illness or mental health issue, like seek out somebody, one, two people that you can really lean on and talk to someone, right? Because talking from my experience and people I've worked with, when they keep all bottled in, it's come to a point where it's going to explode. And when you explode, the other person, the receiving end, is like, "What is this? I didn't know you were dealing with this. I didn't know you were going through this." And it can get bad, right? That situation can be like on a walking on like eggshells, right? So it's like, hey, just, and it doesn't have to be like, and if you have that shame or that guilt, just privately do it. Privately seek out somebody and have a conversation with someone.
yeah. I actually have one last question, and you may not know the answer to this. Do you know if it's men that end up committing suicide more often than women because they don't talk about their stuff?
Oh, I do not know that
I'm
question.
gonna
I
have to
did not
look
know.
that
I
up.
know, so am I.
Yeah. With you saying that, I'm like, like it just spawned this new
Yeah.
thing. I'm gonna have to look that up. And I will
Yes.
post the answer in the description of this video because we won't have the answer right here. So I'm gonna do that. Okay, for all of my people watching today, I appreciate you watching this interview. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, send Elliot a comment. We'll make sure that he gets those comments on anybody that has anything to say. If you're listening on your favorite podcast, go ahead and favorite our podcast service so that you can be notified weekly when our new stuff comes out. We've got cool things coming down the pipeline I'm super excited about. We just don't want you to miss anything. So, everyone, I hope you had a wonderful week. Have a great weekend, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.